When the auctioneer's hammer fell, it sounded like a bone breaking. Inside the Davenport County Courthouse, the crowd gave that taut murmur people make when they've watched something irreversible. The clerk read the number, and I felt it in my teeth. Hammer at $412,000, 58 over assessed, 20 under my last refinance. They filed out. Investors in dark coats, neighbors who came for spectacle, a local vlogger lifting his camera like this was sports. A man clapped my shoulder. Tough market, Mr. Morton. Tough markets don't take houses, men do. My son stepped into the light. He didn't say Dad. He said Elias. He wore a charcoal peacoat and a watch I couldn't afford even when I had a wait list for my contracting calendar. He goes by Adrian now, and he wore the name like a suit you buy to be told you belong. On his arm, Celeste Grafton, winter white coat, chin tilted to catch the lens. Her father's firm sells brass fixtures to kitchens you could land a small plane in. Let's talk somewhere else, Adrian said. The courthouse flag snapped hard against its pole, clack, 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 like a metronome for bad news. I looked back through the doors toward the deed being stamped. 30 years converted to a signature and a smudge. The lemon tree in its clay pot, the blue porch swing on maple quay, now a line on paper. We went to the diner that used to be Sailor's before someone renamed it the Quay and added succulents with words like breathe carved in the cups. It still smelled like bacon and hot dishwater. We took a corner booth. Celeste ordered an espresso like a dare. Adrian ordered tea and never touched it. I ordered black coffee because Sweet had left the building. He slid a tabbed folder across. Transition plan, he said. A buyout dressed as mercy. Subcontract work for me on the Maple Quay renovation. You know the bones. The bones, joists that held when the river swelled, studs my wife, Mara, tapped with her knuckle before she hung pictures of oceans we never saw. She's been gone 6 years. Sometimes the house still creaks where her step used to be, and I look up with a stupid 6-second hope. Why do it like this? I asked. Public. Auction. Why not come to me like a son? He watched the steam rise from his untouched tea. His thumb worried the bezel of that new watch. Because you would have said no, he said at last. You'd make it righteous. And he stopped. Jaw flexed once. I called 3 banks, Dad. They all said the same thing. What are you then? I asked. A realist, he said. The word clicked like a good lock. Celeste leaned in, bright and helpful. We'll move you closer to the river. Single level, modern, no stairs. Cozy. Cozy like a shoebox, I said. Like a fresh start, Adrian corrected. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. January in Rook Harbor makes the whole town sound like a wet dog shaking itself. The sky had that dirty glass color that warns you not to hope too loudly. He tapped the signature line with the nail of his index finger. Sign here, and we'll get the crew started. You'll still paint. We'll feed you work. You'll like the Riverside Flats. Elevator. Security. Celeste can expedite. Expedite grief? I asked. His mouth tightened. Don't make this theatrical, Elias. How did I miss the notices? I asked. All of them. His face didn't move. His voice did. Change of address for tax correspondence only. Legal enough to be deniable. Precise enough to starve you of warning. Celeste's phone buzzed. She glanced, flicked her thumb, spoke without looking up, voice low and clean. Riverside's elevator is out till Thursday, she said. We'll move Friday. I'll get the fob codes by noon. Her competence was a blade with a polite handle. Adrian folded his hands. You keep making this about betrayal, he said. It's not. It's about keeping a thing falling once you tip it. Help doesn't come with a deed transfer, I said. He didn't argue. He just watched me the way he watched domino videos when he was a kid, admiring the planning behind a beautiful collapse. I stared at the signature line. The coffee went cold. Somewhere a child laughed that reckless laugh kids have before they learn the limits of adult rescue. I didn't sign. Drive home, I said. We'll talk there. On Maple Quay, you can count what's wrong before you park. The trash can was moved. The mailbox hung open mid-sentence. 2 plastic boot covers lay deflated by the steps. The crew, merciful enough to keep their souls clean while they tracked through my life. Inside, the ripped-up smell of cardboard and lemon cleaner. Our wedding photograph leaned against a box marked old photos, someone else's handwriting. The blue couch was naked without its quilt. The lemon tree was gone from its clay pot. I touched the soil like a brow. It was damp. They'd watered. Small mercy. In Adrian's old room. The map of the world had lost 2 pushpins. I pressed one back into Mongolia at random. If the map wanted to tell a story without me, it could live with my edit. A knock at the door. I didn't say come in. Adrian did anyway. Celeste hovered on the threshold like a moth choosing a lamp. I told them to leave your bedroom until you okayed it, he said, as if granting me the moral high ground on 1 square foot. You told them, I said, in my house. Reset me, he'd said earlier. I looked around. Reset me to what? He gestured down the hall. Pack that yourself. We stood in the living room while the river whispered through the windows. The house creaked where Mara's step used to be. I asked, do you know why I never sold? Because you're sentimental, he said. Because you think houses are people. Because this house knew your mother, I said. Because when the people you love disappear, you have to put their sound somewhere. He swallowed. Quick. If I hadn't been watching, I would have missed it. I'm not trying to erase her, he said. Or you. What are you trying to do? Win, he said simply. Honest. Almost beautiful in its ugliness. If he'd said save or protect, I might have forgiven him. Win is a door that opens one way. He slid a smaller envelope onto the mantel where the photo had been. My name, typed. Deposit, he said. First month at Riverside. Extra to get you started. The envelope lay there like a pale animal. I didn't touch it. Take it, he said. Don't make this harder. Make it easier, I said. He looked away first. Celeste's hand found his sleeve. He let it stay. The front door opened again without a knock. A man in a navy jacket with a clipboard stepped in. We're going to start loading the truck now, Mr. Morton. Which Mr. Morton? He didn't need to say. Trucks choose their Mr. Mortons. Give us 15, Adrian said. The man retreated like a trained dog. Box cutters unzipped tape. A rolled rug slid across the hardwood I had sanded with rented machines. I waited for anger to crack me open. It didn't. Something slower did. The recognition that in his head, this was mercy. He had solved me like a problem set. Adrian, I said, and the way his head snapped made him a boy for half a second. You win. You get the river view and the tax write-off and whatever applause they give sons who treat assets like stepping stones. But I get something too. What? He said. The last word, I said. He gave that small, affectionate, incredulous laugh. You and your speeches. Not a speech, I said. In the kitchen drawer, warranties, old stamps, the things no one touches until they must. I pulled permits, survey, and an ugly red notice. Do not ignore. Laid them on the counter next to his deposit envelope and turned each like a tarot card. He frowned. What are you doing? Setting the table, I said. For when we talk next. Celeste came closer, careful hands, good paper. Elias, what is this lien? The north retaining wall, I said. After the last flood maps, the city made me add one. I couldn't finish. The contractor filed. The city kept extending me because they knew I was trying. I didn't raise money the way you do. I raised time. I tapped the notice. City lien hashtag 17-443B, recorded November 2nd, attaches to land, not owner. You bought the note with the deed. The wall belongs to you, and the river does not listen to momentum. His face changed like winter sky, slow, inevitable. He stared at the paper as if it were in a language he should speak, and suddenly didn't. We'll handle it, he said, because he needed a verb. Of course, I said. You handle things. That's what you do. We stood 4 feet apart in a room being undone by quiet hands. For the first time all day, I wasn't cold. We'll talk tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, I echoed. He took the deposit envelope. He left the rest. He and Celeste stepped onto the porch. Winter light caught her hair like a warning flare. The crew arrived with dollies. Removal is a softer sound than you think until you know what it means. After they left, the house hummed. The refrigerator like a distant boat. The river like a patient with secrets. I pressed my palm to the permit folder until the heat of my skin bled through. I wrote a list on the back of a takeout menu. Tore it up. Wrote a new list with different verbs. On the mantel, where the envelope had been, the wood made a small, settling noise. I touched that spot with 2 fingers. Warm. Sometimes, when something breaks clean, you can glue it so no one sees the seam unless they run their hands across it. Sometimes, the seam is the point. I turned off the light, locked the door, and stepped into an afternoon that felt exactly like morning. Possible, if you can find a path through the cold. Tomorrow, Adrian would bring a locksmith and a smile. I would bring a survey stake and the river's memory. I had given him the last word for now. I would take the next one. Somewhere in the wall, a pipe knocked. Once, like a witness clearing its throat. Morning crawled into the house before I did. Pale winter light pressed through the blinds like it was trying not to wake anyone. I slept a couple hours on the stripped couch, coat still on, shoes somewhere near the door. The quilt was gone, the cushions naked, but Mara's lemon polish smell lingered just enough to make the emptiness feel personal. The house breathed small drafts in the corners. It felt like it was thinking. I moved through each room with a notebook, doing the only thing that steadies my hands, listing repairs. A cracked riser. A sticking chain in the pantry. Drywall pulling slightly where heat collects near the mantel. Fixable truths. Things that don't lie. At 7:14 a.m., the town siren tested, its long, apologetic moan threading through the cold. When it died, the wall behind me gave a knock. A vibration moved up the studs, subtle but sure. Not plumbing. Not settling. A message. I cracked 2 eggs into a mug, drank them standing up, slid the permits, survey, and the red notice into my old leather folio. The one from my first commercial job when I still believed ink meant understanding. At 8:42, hazard lights flickered outside. The rental truck again. Efficient. Neutral. Union contract neutral. Not one man was going to look at me longer than his instructions allowed. Celeste's white SUV pulled in behind them, quiet and deliberate. She stepped out in a camel coat, gloves matching her earrings, hair sharp enough to file paper. She wasn't here to lift boxes. She was here to manage the narrative. Her phone buzzed. She didn't glance to see who it was. Variance walks at 10? She murmured into her mic. A pause. Parcel 14B, not 14A. Yes. Confirm. Parcel numbers. From memory. Competence as threat. She looked at me with a soft, lethal smile. We'll keep things orderly. Orderly isn't the same as fair. She didn't disagree. She just adjusted her sleeve. At 8:48, Adrian's car rolled up, perfectly centered between the lines, the way he always parks. He wore that same charcoal coat, same watch, thumb on the bezel, already checking time he hadn't earned. Morning, he said, voice corporate calm. I didn't answer. His eyes slid past me, studying the boxes by the door, the rug rolled tight in plastic, the empty mantel. He wasn't grieving the house. He was inventorying it. Keys, he said. Let's do this right. I let him inside. The house was cold where the movers had peeled up old rugs. The hardwood felt bare. On the counter, in the ceramic dish Mara bought at a craft fair, sat the 2 keys, brass and steel. He held out his hand the way a manager does when he expects compliance. I lifted the brass one first. It was warm. 30 years of palms do that. Side door, I said. Sticks in winter. He nodded, patient. Then I picked up the steel one. New. Cold. Deadbolt you insisted on. Insurance likes it, he said, a reflex. I didn't hand it over. How long? I asked quietly. Have you been planning this? A tiny beat. His thumb slowed on the watch. A breath he measured wrong. Don't start this. How long? His eyes flicked to the empty mantel, to the boxes, to the house he was about to rename. Then, a year. A year. Long enough to file a tax correspondence only address change. Legal enough to pass. Targeted enough to blindside. Long enough to reroute every notice. Long enough to recruit Celeste's board connections. Long enough to build a plan without a father in it. Why, I asked. His voice dropped. Because you weren't moving. And the world was. I called 3 banks. They all gave me the same timeline. You solved that by purchasing the silence. It's not silence, he said. It's momentum. You love that word. You think once something's falling, the kind thing is to let it hit the ground. He swallowed. Fast, subtle. A crack. Keys, he repeated. Before I gave him the steel one, I said, let's see what you actually bought. He stiffened. Celeste stepped closer, a quiet nod telling him, go. I led them out back. Snow crust crunched under our boots. The river's surface shifted under the early melt, the sound of a slow decision forming. The retaining wall leaned more than yesterday, not by sight, but by feel. The capstones told the truth even when men don't. Adrian stared. It's fixable. You're missing numbers. Celeste came up beside him. I pointed. City lien hashtag 17-443B. Attaches to land. Estimated $40 to $65,000. Higher if melt hits early. Her jaw shifted by a millimeter. She dialed her mic. "Carter, I need environmental's full file. Today. No delays." There it was, her real profession. Adrian breathed out hard. Steam fogged his glasses. "You could have told me," he said. "You could have asked." At 9:41, Deputy Hale's SUV pulled up. "River boots. County Parka." He nodded once, storm language. "Wall's getting loud," he said. "Started this morning," I replied. At 9:58, Inspector Kim arrived with her junior tech and survey rod. She didn't do greetings, just scanned the wall like she was checking an old friend's pulse. "We'll walk," she said. Adrian held his box of locks. "After we." "No," she said. "Before." We moved along the flag boundary. The river shifted, pushing ice into the wall with a thick, muted thump. The vibration traveled up the soil, through my boots, into the house. It answered with a soft creak. Listening. Kim knelt, touched a heaved capstone. "Movement. Photograph." The junior clicked. Adrian tried again. "We're committed to repair. Commitments begin before convenience," she said without looking up. Celeste's nostrils flared. "Only a little." Hale tipped his chin toward the water. "If that melt keeps up, she'll shove again by afternoon." Kim scribbled a number. Heavy movement paused until review. No lock changes. Adrian's shoulders stiffened. "Why not?" "Because," Hale said, "I don't want to scrape a locksmith out of the river when your footing coughs." Celeste tried to recover. "We'll have stamped drawings by Tuesday." "Submit then," Kim said. After review. She tore off the yellow copy and handed it to Adrian. The imprint was deep, letters pressed like force trying to become consent. Blue carbon dusted Adrian's thumb. He looked at it like the dirt had insulted him. At 10:27, they left with a stack of photos, a sound recording of the wall's knock, and the river's patience. Celeste turned to Adrian. "We regroup at 1. I'll get the variance board on the phone." Adrian didn't say anything. He just stared at the wall like it had broken character. When they started back toward the front, he spoke low. "You did this." "No," I said. "You did it in August." Every step after was gravity. He gave a single humorless breath, half laugh, half wound. "You still think records are victory. They're not. They're distractions." "Maybe," I said. "But they outlive shortcuts." I placed the steel key into his hand. It stayed cold. He flinched at the temperature. "This one's yours," I said. "For now." He pocketed it and walked away. Celeste followed, murmuring instructions, her heels clicking like a metronome, trying to keep an empire on tempo. When the trucks and SUVs left Maple Quay, the quiet settled in with weight. A low, thinking quiet. I walked to the far corner of the yard with my old survey stake, the one I'd sharpened years ago when the city pretended my boundaries were flexible. I pressed it into the frozen ground. It resisted, then accepted. A deep, satisfying sound, like plugging history back into its socket. The river leaned again, nudging the wall. A heavy knock. Then another. The footing answered. Not yet. They would bring locks. They would bring paperwork. They would bring a story written without me. But the land had its own edits. Tomorrow they'd return with a locksmith and confidence. I'd return with something older. The house inhaled through the vents, a long, steady breath. Something beneath all of us was awake. The house held its cold longer than I expected. Overnight frost clung to the inside edges of the kitchen window, thin as paper, easy to overlook unless you knew where to look. I noticed everything this morning. Every draft, every vibration, every small confession the boards made when the temperature shifted. At 6:11 a.m., the first knock came, not on the door, but from the retaining wall. A dull, thick thump that traveled straight through the soil and into the floorboards. The house seemed to tense beneath my feet. Not yet, I murmured. Some forces don't obey timelines. Not mine. Not Adrian's. Not the town's. I brewed coffee and watched the steam coil upward, slow and doubtful, like it wasn't sure this kitchen belonged to me anymore. At 7:03, headlights crept down Maple Quay. A single car rolling slow. Not Adrian. Not Celeste. Not anyone I recognized. Dark sedan. Windows tinted too deep for county standards. It didn't stop. Didn't speed up. Just drifted past, like it was checking off a box. When it reached the end of the block, the brake lights flicked once. Tiny, deliberate. Then it turned the corner and disappeared. A scouting run. Or just timing. Or someone making sure the old man stayed predictable. Either way, the road went quiet again, The kind of quiet that makes you check the deadbolt even though you're standing 2 feet from it. At 8:12, I stepped outside and inspected the wall myself. Thin dusting of snow on the capstones. One stone darker than the rest. Wet. Faint line of seep coming through the mortar. A whisper of melt. Early. Too early. The river shifted below, its undercurrent slow but firm, like a hand pushing the wall with one finger to see how easily it would sway. I placed my palm on the capstone. Warm. Not from the sun. There wasn't any. Pressure. Steady. Unbothered by human drama. At 9:01, the convoy arrived. Not a figure of speech. A convoy. A black private security SUV, then Adrian's car, then Celeste's. Behind them, a small utility van with the logo of a professional locksmith service that doesn't usually visit residential streets. Legal pressure, arriving like a well-timed weather system. The locksmith stepped out first, a tall man in a gray uniform, carrying an instrument case that looked more like a surgeon's kit than a hardware toolbox. He nodded politely to me. Morning. Scheduled work order. Not today, I said. He tapped the tablet. Says here you're authorizing access. I'm not. He blinked, looked again. Work order submitted by the deed holder. Temporary possession, order pending. There it was. The phrase I knew was coming. Pending. Not granted. Not approved. Just pending. Which means nothing is final, but everything is already moving. Adrian stepped out of his car like a man who'd rehearsed this walk in his head. Coat perfect. Scarf neat. Thumb already reaching for the watch bezel, the way some men reach for rosaries. Dad, he said, in that patient corporate tone. Don't make this difficult. Behind him, Celeste closed her door with deliberate softness. A sound like velvet being pressed into shape. She didn't bother hiding the smirk. You forgot one detail, I said. What's that? Adrian asked. Pending isn't permission. His jaw tightened. That barely perceptible microline appeared between his eyebrows, a tell I'd known since he was 5. We'll get the order, he said. But you don't have it now. Let's not do this. You came with a locksmith. I motioned to the man with the kit. That's doing this. Celeste stepped closer. The county doesn't usually oppose a temporary possession order when the deed is already transferred. It's procedural. Procedural, I repeated. Your favorite word. She offered a thin smile that tasted like metal. Predictable systems are easier to navigate. Except rivers, I said. That wiped her smile clean for a moment. Hale arrived next. He parked crooked, a sign he wasn't here for courtesy. He stepped out in his river boots again, hat low, face set to that expression he uses when he's about to tell a fisherman that their dock ladder is about to get torn loose. Morning, Hale said. Adrian's face tightened. Deputy Good. We're here to do nothing, Hale interrupted. Until I say otherwise. Celeste folded her arms, unimpressed. This isn't under county jurisdiction. Hale pointed toward the yard. That wall shifts. Everything's under county jurisdiction. He turned to the locksmith. You go inside if you want, but I'm not fishing you out of the river when the footing burps. The locksmith hesitated just long enough to prove he understood the risk. Look, Adrian said, this can go smoothly. No, I said. It can go honestly. His face changed. Not anger, not sadness, something thinner. Fatigue. Maybe regret. Maybe the crack widening. Dad, he said quietly. I'm trying to move us forward. You keep calling it forward like the word makes it moral. It makes it necessary. Necessary for who? His throat moved, one swallow. The hairline crack. Before the silence could deepen, Celeste stepped in like a blade. Daniel, she said, her voice dipped in condescension. This is bigger than nostalgia. Your son is trying to help you transition. Help, I said. Help is a gift. This is a removal. You're being dramatic, she said. And you're being invasive. For the first time, her expression faltered. 1 second, no more. Then she regained control. We should walk the interior. No, Hale said. We walk the yard first. Kim arrived from her SUV with a clipboard, cold breath spilling from her scarf. She didn't greet anyone. She simply looked at the wall. Movement, she said instantly. Adrian turned. Again. Not a collapse, Kim said. But she's talking. The river runs early this year, Hale added. Kim knelt, pulled a small pencil, marked a line on the heaved soil. If pressure increases at thaw, you'll have 4, maybe 5 days before we need barriers. Celeste tensed. We can handle that. Not today, Kim said. Today we observe. I watched Adrian absorb this like medicine he didn't want but needed. His breath fogged again, heavier. We can talk inside, he tried. Kim didn't move. Not until the footing is reviewed. County policy. Celeste took a slow breath. Fine. As we returned to the front walkway, I felt it, something behind us. A presence. Not a person I could name. Not a movement I could prove. Just awareness pushing against the back of my neck. I turned. The dark sedan was back. This time, it was parked. Driver invisible behind the tinted glass. Watching. Waiting. Silent. Friend of yours? Hale asked quietly. No, I said. They've circled twice. Adrian overheard. Dad, don't start with paranoia. It's not paranoia when someone's casing the street. They're probably a contractor. For what? Surveillance. My voice scraped. That's not what this is, he snapped. For the first time, his veneer cracked fully. Not rage. Something worse. Fear. Of losing control. Of losing narrative. Of losing me. The locksmith cleared his throat. Sir? Still want me to stand by? No, Hale said. Not until review. Celeste stepped in front of Adrian, face sharp again. We'll wait. You'll wait outside, Hale said. Her head lifted slightly. Is that necessary? Yes. Adrian rubbed his forehead once. Let's just stay calm. His phone buzzed. A text. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted. Barely, but enough. What is it? I asked. Nothing, he said too quickly. That's not true. He pocketed the phone. Just logistics. Celeste lied for him more smoothly. Contractors asking about access windows. But his face, his eyes, something tightened inside him. Something he wasn't saying. We stood there in a cold triangle of silence. Me, my son, and the woman who'd built a world where he thought paperwork was moral. At 10:19, Kim finished her yard review and handed Adrian a second form. Wall movement documented, she said. Pending further assessment. No alterations to foundation or entry infrastructure recommended. Entry infrastructure? Celeste echoed. Kim nodded. Doors. Locks. Anything that changes load-bearing equilibrium during active pressure. Adrian closed his eyes. She just barred his locksmith from touching a single screw. Kim added, and if your contacts push for emergency approval, tell them to call me. I answer the phone. She walked off with Hale, both of them speaking in low voices. The locksmith returned to his van. Celeste didn't like losing. Not in public. Not in private. She turned to me with quiet fury. You're manipulating the situation. No, I said. The soil is. But she wasn't looking at the wall anymore. She was looking at Adrian. What did you expect? She whispered to him. He's been waiting to sabotage this. Adrian stepped back from her, barely a few inches, but enough to register. Celeste, he breathed, not now. For the first time, she lost composure. A thin, precise crack in her voice. If this falls apart. It won't, he said. But there was no conviction behind it. He turned to me. I'm not your enemy, he said. I know, I answered. But you let someone else write your logic. That's not fair. Fair isn't the point. True is. He looked down at the snow, where the outline of the stake I placed yesterday was still visible. He didn't kneel, didn't touch it, but his eyes lingered. Recognition. Maybe memory. He straightened, exhaled hard, and finally admitted something small but important. I don't want this to get ugly. It already is. Then help me fix it. You can't fix what you won't name. He didn't reply. He couldn't. At 10:53, Celeste finally said, We're wasting time. Adrian stiffened, as if she'd just pulled a string in his spine, and stepped back toward his car. We'll regroup, he said. When? I asked. He didn't answer. Celeste spoke instead. Before noon. They got into their cars. The locksmith drove off. The SUV with the dark tint lingered for 3 long seconds, then rolled away without hurry. The house behind me creaked, slow, deliberate, like it had something to say. The river pressed once more against the wall. A deep reverberation. An answer waiting in the soil. I walked inside, closed the door gently, and locked it from the inside. Not because I was afraid. Because something older than fear was waking, and I needed quiet to hear it. Tomorrow, they'd return with a judge's stamp and a new strategy. I'd return with the survey stake, the lien, the records, and the river on my side. The house woke first, heat ducts sighing like a body after bad dreams. Frost webbed the kitchen window. When I breathed on it, it retreated a millimeter. From below came a single, deliberate knock through the retaining wall. The vibration climbed the studs and into my fingers on the sill. Not yet. I laid out the folio on the table. Survey, permits, lien 17-443B, Inspector Kim's yellow carbon, my tape, a carpenter's pencil worn down to his stubborn nub. A legal pad. 5 lines. Lien attaches to land, 17-443B. Environmental. No lock changes under active pressure. Wall movement documented, sound plus photos. Possession is not equal to safe access. Alternatives. Escrow wall, staged move, 72-hour review. At 7:06 a.m., the dark sedan slid past Maple Quay. Windows tinted too deep for county standards. No stop. A single brake pulse at the end of the block. Gone. I wrote a 6th line. Sedan, who/why. A text buzzed. Adrian. Hearing 11:30. Department C. Temporary possession. Be there. Celeste. Wear a jacket. Judge Murrow runs cold. Competence as threat. I texted Hale. Me. 11:30. You in? Hale. If the judge wants the wall's voice, I'll bring it. Me. Bring boots. Behind the house, a thin skin of ice flexed on the river. The capstones were slightly warmer than air under my palm. Pressure warms what it touches. 2 houses over. Mrs. Ingersoll pushed a broom across her stoop. Bring a coat, she called. Courthouse vents don't like people. I'll bring paper, I said. Bring a spine, she said. They hate those. I left at 10:31. The survey stake wedged in the footwell like an opinion. The sedan idled at the corner as if by accident. When I turned, it didn't follow. It would be back. The courthouse smelled like paper and old coffee. Department C had tan carpet and a loud clock. Celeste had claimed counsel table without being counsel. Adrian sat beside her. His thumb hovered near the watch but didn't touch it. I sat alone. Pride. A bad lawyer. Sometimes the only one who'll take your case. Hale slid into the back row a minute before the judge. Kim followed in her city parka, clipboard tucked like a shield. Davenport County Court, Department C, the clerk read. In retransfer of possession, Parcel 14B, Maple Quay. Petitioner, Morton Development. Respondent, Morton Elias. Judge Murrow had a retired shop teacher face and eyes that knew paper outlasts wrenches. He looked at Celeste, at me, then nudged the thermostat up 2 degrees. Maybe he'd read her text. Celeste stood. Your Honor, deeds transferred. We seek temporary possession to secure the structure and begin safety updates. We'll escrow the wall. Murrow, environmental. Kim stepped forward. Movement documented. Recommendation, no changes to entry infrastructure during active pressure. In plain English? Murrow asked. Don't shake the door frame while the floor's thinking, Kim said. Deputy, the judge said. Hale, river's early. If 3 men lean wrong on a pivot, you get a cough from the footing. Possession today? Murrow said to Celeste. Keys now, no lock change for 48 hours. Environmental oversight, escrow today. The occupant can remain as licensee under our supervision. Licensee. Disguise. Adrian's jaw flexed once. He hated the word, too. Mr. Morton? Murrow said. I opened the folio. I'm not against safety. I'm against speed pretending to be safety. Lien 17-443B attaches to land. City estimate 40 to 65. Environmental says no lock changes under pressure, which includes jostling crews. My proposal. Escrow wall in full today. Environmental set sign off. No crews inside until then. I hold keys until clearance. They get copies at sign off. No locksmith theater. A record we won't be ashamed to read later. Murrow nodded. Petitioner. Celeste pivoted without blinking. We agree to escrow today. Environmental oversight. No lock changes for 48 hours. We request keys now with a copy set at sign off. Murrow looked at Adrian. Son. Adrian stood like a man stepping into light. Yes, Your Honor. What's the rush? He lowered his eyes. I'm not sure there is one. Something in Celeste's face cooled a degree. Order, Murrow said. Petitioner escrows city maximum by close of business. Environmental sets walk schedule and clearance threshold. No lock changes. No heavy movement. Keys remain with Mr. Morton for 48 hours. Petitioner receives copy set when environmental clears interior traffic. If the wall coughs, you both walk. The clerk typed. The printer hummed. Celeste's smile didn't move. Adrian exhaled. Relief or resignation. We filed out. The corridor smelled like paint and disinfectant. Hale tapped my shoulder. Good enough for today. Kim said, I'll call if the wall changes its mind. Does it do that? I asked. Every spring, she said and left. Celeste walked ahead, already on her mic, full escrow by 4. Engineer now. Stamped prelims tomorrow. Mid-sentence, she corrected the parcel number to 14B without looking. Scary even when losing a round. Outside, the dark sedan idled half a block down in a 20-minute zone. A small round sticker on the rear window. A private surveying company logo, the kind that appears before demolition signs do. Your contractor? I asked Adrian. No, he said. Too fast. Ignore the scenery, Celeste said. We have work. We drove back separately. At the cannery light, the sedan slid between us and then ghosted away. It had seen what it came for. On Maple Quay, Mrs. Ingersoll sat with a steaming mug. We get 2 days? She called. 2, I said. Maybe 3 if the wall keeps talking. Then today is soup and lists. Inside, the house was a degree warmer. Approval given the only way a structure can speak. I ran a hand along the doorframe Adrian wanted to swap this morning. The grain caught my skin. Some would remember. I made soup from what was left. Carrots, a tired onion, 2 cups of stock. I ate standing up, watching the flagged line. Once, twice, 3 times the river pressed. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. A courier slid an envelope through the mail slot at 2:13. Celeste's firm. I placed it on the mantel where yesterday's note had pressed letters into the wood, as if force could substitute for consent. Hale texted at 3:07. A dashcam frame zoomed on the sedan, plate half visible, corporate fleet tag. Title insurers, private survey. Celeste's? Or a buyer shopping the parcel around a problem, I wrote. I'll ask nicely, he replied. At 3:28, a knock on my door. 2 short, 1 long. An old code my bones recognized before my mind did. Adrian. No coat. He carried a butcher-wrapped box. He set it on the step and peeled the paper back. My old levels, bronze and steel, the set Mara gave me on our 10th anniversary. I'd thought them lost. That's not a trick, he said. I kept them safe. Why bring them now, and not a month ago? He exhaled. Because the timing felt wrong then. And feels right now? It feels like I stole enough. The line landed like a dropped tool on concrete. Heavy. Honest. The kind of sentence that doesn't fix anything but stops you from lying about it. He glanced down the block, toward where the sedan had been, then back at me. Celeste thinks I should push harder. The board does too. You're bored, I said. I don't know if they're right. Behind the house, the wall knocked hard enough that the window glass shivered. He flinched. Do you hear it now? I asked. I hear it, he said. I just don't know what it wants. It wants you to stop mistaking schedules for consent. He nodded once, like a student accepting a rule he had hoped to argue around. Celeste turned the corner and parked, carrying a tube of drawings and a face that didn't allow narrative drift. Stamped prelims, she said. Engineer says we can brace in 3 days if environmental signs. Good, I said. Then we move in 3 days. Keys at sign-off? She asked. Keys when the footing won't cough. Progress, she said. At the end of the block, the sedan idled again. Fleet tag. Survey logo. Watching. Hale's SUV rolled in from the other side and stopped casually. Beautiful day to let things settle, he said to the street. Celeste gave him a millimeter of acknowledgement. Escrow receipt by 4, she told Adrian. Then we wait. Adrian nodded. He stayed on the porch a breath longer than necessary, white fog from his mouth in small ghosts. Then he took his coat from the rail and left with her. I carried the levels inside and set the bronze on the mantel over the press letter scar. The bubble found center instantly, like it had been waiting for its cue. Outside, the light thinned. The river dulled from gunmetal to pewter. Somewhere upstream, slush became a bad decision. At 4:02, the escrow receipt slid through the slot. 2 many zeros. Progress that tasted like debt. At 4:11, the sedan parked across from Mrs. Ingersoll's and killed its engine. No smoke. No movement. A glossy black absence pretending to be a car. At 5:03, a siren wound up near the ferry road and faded. Normal, probably. None of us pretended. At 5:19, something moved near the flagged line. Not a person I knew. A shadow slid from the fence where the lilacs used to be, down toward the river with more care than wind gives. By the time I reached the steps, it vanished. One set of prints remained on the slope. Narrow, smooth. Office shoes where boots belonged. A glove scrape on a capstone. "Hey," I called, not to summon, just to mark the air as mine. The river answered with a hollow slam. The survey stake quivered. A picture inside shifted on its hook and hung crooked like a witness deciding what to say. I phoned Hale. "Tourist. Stay put," he said. 2 minutes. While I waited, I set Mara's level on the mantle again. The bubble held perfect center. The house inhaled through the vents. The wall knocked, closer to a cough now than a knock. Outside, a door clicked, the sedan's. When I stepped onto the porch, its window reflected me back. Blank as a shut-eye, Hale idled at the curb and listened with his boots on the walk. "Whoever it was has better shoes than sense," he said. "Survey tag could be real, could be cover. Either way, someone's shopping this problem." "What's the number?" I asked. Enough zeros to make stupid look like strategy. We stood in the brittle light while the porch bulb hummed and settled. In his mirror, the sedan's window threw back 2 men who looked more tired than they had planned to be this week. The sedan rolled away with sermon pace. Inside, the tea-eyed maid went cool on the counter. I slid the level into its wooden sleeve and set the box above the mantel like a relic. On the table, the list waited. I added a final line, because the story was pretending to be only wood and water. Which version of my son survives this? The wall knocked once more. The footing answered. Not yet. Tomorrow they'd bring engineers who talk faster than other men breathe. More stamped paper. A new way to say inevitable. Celeste would correct something at a glance. The sedan would be wherever it needed to be. The river would do math without calculators. I turned off the light and let the hallway hold me as I walked to the bedroom they'd promised not to pack without asking. The doorknob felt like it always had, warmed by years of hands that knew where it was in the dark. The house made one last sound, small, brave, like a throat clearing before a stubborn sentence. Not yet. And I believed it. Snow hadn't fallen overnight, but the world had that early winter stillness that feels like a held breath. The house woke first, as always, heat ducts sighing, wood adjusting, the familiar creaked rhythm rising through the studs. Then the wall spoke. A single, deliberate knock. Not a threat. A shift. Pike had called that a knock. Pressure correction. Assignment settling. A cough meant danger. Silence. Kim said that was the worst one. Silence means the wall is thinking. Today, it wasn't silent. That counted for something. I made coffee and watched steam blur the window for half a breath. Maple Quay was pale and cold, traffic humming in the distance. The flag survey line cut across the yard like a question no one wanted to answer. At 9:13, a sedan eased into view. Same model, wrong posture. The new driver sat too close to the wheel, shoulder tense, head angled just enough to catch the house in peripheral vision. He didn't linger. He didn't wave. He just passed. Beat 1. I noted the plate. Not to confront, just to remember. 10 minutes later, Celeste arrived with rolled drawings tucked under her arm, and that expression she wore when every variable belonged to her. Adrian followed in his own car, parking with precision, pretending to be control. He came up the walk first, coat open, breath visible. The board funded the full escrow, he said. Kim gets the receipt at 9:30. Good, I said. Let's keep the professionals happy. Celeste brushed past both of us, already studying the ground near the flag line. For the first time since all this began, she squinted at one of Pike's markers, just slightly, just long enough to suggest she wasn't completely certain she'd read the setup right. A hairline of doubt. Not much. Just a flicker. Enough to keep her interesting. Pike and Inspector Kim arrived from the side gate. Pike set his palm on the capstones, then placed his small accelerometer, numbers blinking in fast, clipped rhythm. He explained the wall's vocabulary again, almost offhand. Knock, pressure shift. Sigh, settling. Cough, danger. Silence, unknown. Good to have the legend spoken out loud. Good to know what the house was saying. Your wall is talkative, but not screaming, Pike said. We can brace. 2 hours light work, for the test. Celeste misread the number on his display for half a second before recovering. Even that tiny slip looked expensive for her to allow. We need access at 2, she said. Cruise staged. 2 is warmest, Kim said. So 2. Adrian nodded, but I saw the flick in his eyes. He was tracking the sedan's earlier pass, maybe realizing what he hadn't admitted yet. Hale texted, Tilson survey again. Same fleet tag. Pattern forming. I typed. Not Celeste's crew. Watching. Hail. Or shopping the problem. Keep distance. At 1:58, the brace crew arrived. Unbranded trucks. Deliberate movements. No loud decisions. Pike monitored them like a doctor grading a pulse. Everything careful. Nothing heroic. At 2:14, the sedan returned. Beat 2. It idled across from Mrs. Ingersoll's, engine barely audible. Wrong posture again. Watching, but not participating. Good. Fear without clarity travels farther. I checked on the crew inside the yard. They set the first steel post, careful not to lean on the frames. Aside from the wall, settling. Second post. A knock, pressure shifting, but friendly. Third post. Silence. Kim stiffened. Silence meant the wall was thinking, deciding, waiting. After a long moment, the accelerometer light steadied. Pike nodded. Behaving, he said. She's ready for her beam. The beam dropped in, delicate as surgery. Small sounds. Measured movements. The kind of work that trusted physics more than pride. By 3, the relief trench was cut cleanly along the north line. Soil loosened and exhaled. Small release, safe release. Kim made a note. We're good for copy keys at 5, if numbers hold. Celeste let none of this move her. She just said, progress, like she owned the word. Adrian stood quieter than usual, watching Pike, watching the house, watching the sedan, never long enough to admit it had power over him, but long enough for me to see the truth. He wasn't afraid of the house. He was afraid of everything circling it. At 3:27, he asked me outside alone. No clipboard, no script, just his hands shoved into his coat pockets like a boy deciding whether to tell the truth. I brought something, he said, lifting a manila folder. Inside was the photocopy of that old picture. Him at 8, passing me a Phillips head through a loose porch board. My forearm visible in the frame, scar and all. Seeing it hit harder than any lien or ledger. Memory with no agenda. Why this now? I asked. Because I don't want you thinking I only showed up to win, he said. His voice cracked by a degree. Too small for a stranger to catch. Too loud for blood to ignore. You were right yesterday. It's expensive. Not complicated. He swallowed. Looked at the sedan. Looked away. I don't want to be their timing anymore, he said. Then stop, I said. It's not that simple. It is, I said. Painful, but simple. A knock rolled faintly through the wall behind us. Pressure shift, nothing dangerous. Pike glanced up from his notes. At 4:52, Kim gave the nod. Clear to hand over one copy. Adrian stepped forward to receive it. Not Celeste. Her hand twitched like she wanted to intercept, but he didn't let her. He pocketed the single copy key, and for the first time all day, I saw her expression harden out of calculation. This wasn't the script she'd written. Progress, she said again, colder now. The crew packed their tools. Pike left his accelerometer anchored, a silent green pulse in a plastic case, patient as breath. The sedan didn't leave this time. It sat. Engine off. Windows dark. Beat 3 was coming. I shut the door behind them, set the original key on the counter, and warmed my hands on a mug of tea that had stopped steaming. The house creaked once. Not danger, not shift, just an acknowledgement. At 5:39, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Short message. Keys aren't your problem. What they open is. The accelerometer flickered. Just once. A tiny, sharp stutter, like something under the soil had nudged the truth. The house answered with a soft, answering creak. Not fear. Recognition. Not yet. The house didn't sleep. It only waited. A round for a sigh slid through the studs, settling, safe. At 6, when my fingers touched the cold window, the wall gave a single knock. Pressure shift. Morning attention. Legend. Knock equals shift. Sigh equals settling. Cough equals danger. Silence equals unknown. Adrian texted at 7:18. Porch. Alone. 10 minutes. Alone was new. He stood at the bottom step, coat unbuttoned, holding a small envelope like it could burn. I need you to see this before she gets here, he said. What is it? Something we shouldn't have used. She called it standard. It wasn't. His throat tightened. It explains the sedan. Before I could take it, Celeste's SUV slid to the curb too early to be coincidence. Clipboard. Pleasant expression. New tactic. Morning, she said. Big day. Inside, we sat at the kitchen table. Me at the head, them opposite. The house went silent. The worst one. like the wall was thinking. First, Celeste said, pen tapping once. Engineer needs crawlspace access. No movement, just readings. Environmental will schedule interior clearance. No one goes under this house until Pike says it can carry them, I said. He already did. Adrian flinched, small, but there. He hadn't expected her to know that, or to use it. Second, the Watcher vehicle, she added, breezy. Tilson survey. Title insurer. Boundary verification. 6 times. I asked. They're thorough. She was lying. Beautifully. Adrian's thumb grazed his watch. Celeste clocked it, filed it, adjusted course. I know this is overwhelming, Elias. The transitions, the wall, the escrow. We're not here to push you out. We're here to make the property safe. Legally. For you. Safe moves paperwork faster, I said. She smiled. Predictable is safe. Predictable is profitable. I stood. Walk with me. We crossed to the brace posts. Pike's accelerometer blinked green, steady. He and Inspector Kim were already at the line. Pike respoke the legend almost casually. Knock is shift. Sigh is settling. Cough means danger. Yellow means thinking. Red means us. You're not here to make this property safe, I told Celeste. You're here to make it predictable. Her jaw tightened a millimeter. Predictable is safe. Predictable is profitable, I repeated. Her eyes slid, once, toward Adrian's coat pocket, toward the envelope she hadn't touched but desperately wanted to read through. She kept glancing at his coat like she could will paper to turn glass. Fine, she said. If you want to stay through thaw, we can structure it. Temporary occupancy. License. But we need cooperation. Including the sedan? She didn't look at it. She looked at Adrian. A mistake. Small, perfect. He hadn't known she'd been coordinating the Watcher. She wasn't fully coordinating him. I'm taking a walk, he blurted. Dad, come. We got half a block before he passed me the envelope. Authorized by C. Danvers. Celeste's signature. Dated 5 days before the auction. Before the bid. Before the warning. Before the letters vanished. Title insurer request for non-standard verification, he said. She called it routine. Cleanup. Efficiency. It was leverage, I said. She said the auction would settle everything clean. That winning would make the noise stop. I heard the director's voice in that. Policy, process, a script he mistook for virtue. Do you understand what this means? He asked. I understand momentum, I said. And who tipped the first piece? Behind us, a knock, shift, then a short cough. Danger. Pike wouldn't like that. Beat 1. The sedan arrived with a new driver. Wrong posture. Too close to the wheel. It slid past, marking us. We headed back. Pike and Kim were crouched, reading numbers. The accelerometer flicked yellow, thinking. At the fence line, Celeste had her phone to her ear, posture oriented toward the sedan now, not away. She wasn't orchestrating everything. She was reacting. My phone buzzed. Unknown sender. A short video, 0002.mov. Shaky underbelly of a house, my house. Lights hung. Soil disturbed. 2 gloved hands clipped a small, black device to a beam. Not telemetry, no wire, no tag. A clip-on mass meant to teach the beam the wrong lesson. Weight/vibration, sabotage. A profile crossed the frame. Not Adrian. Not Celeste. The man from the lilac fence. Office shoes in mud. The one who left the smooth tread and the scrape on the capstone. The clip ended. The house gave a long, low cough. Yellow to red, Kim muttered. Red means us. Pike stood. Kim swore. Celeste turned. Adrian backed away. Beat 2. The sedan idled across from Mrs. Ingersoll's. Watching now, engine low. The flags along the north run shivered. The beam took a ½ millimeter and held. A capstone ticked. The accelerometer flickered red. Everybody off the line. Kim shouted. We stepped back as the wall gave a hard knock. Pressure trying to move where it wasn't invited. The house answered with a tight, brave creak. The kind of structure gives when it refuses to fall on cue. Beat 3. The sedan crept 1 foot forward. Just one. Enough to say, we're not done. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. Originals write the ending. Silence fell. Not safe. Unknown. Then, just once, the accelerometer light flickered, as if something under the soil had nudged the truth. The house gave a small answering creak. We stopped treating it like a wall with a problem and started treating it like a crime scene with a pulse. The first thing I noticed was the air. It felt heavier, like the house had inhaled and hadn't decided whether to exhale. Pike and Kim moved like surgeons around the devices laid out on the porch. Two black masses. No markings. No wires. No tag. Too heavy for their size. Too dense to be innocent. Pike nudged one with his gloved knuckle. That's not telemetry. It adds weight in pulses, teaches the beam of false gravity. False gravity. Someone engineered a failure. Behind us, the wall gave a slow knock. Shift. Not danger, but uneasy. A mug on the counter rattled twice, dust lifting from the joist like breath. The sedan idled across the street. Driver, the same man from the lilac fence. Office shoes. River mud dried at the cuff. And now one new detail. He tapped the steering wheel once. Not rhythm, calibration. Measuring something. Kim pointed at him without making it obvious. He's not watching the house. He's watching us work. Adrian stood on the porch, arms folded tight across his chest. How many of these could they have clipped under there? No more than 4 or 5, Pike said. But 2 is enough to change behavior. Celeste stood at the edge of the yard, phone dead still in her hand. She wasn't pretending anymore. She knew she'd lost control of the narrative. I stepped toward her. You're going to tell us what this is. She blinked, slow, too slow, before the mask reset. I told you. Title insurer subcontract. Boundary verification. And the devices? I didn't authorize them. But you suspected something, I said. She looked away for the first time. A crack. A fracture. Collapse under predicted load enters a different liability category, she said quietly. If failure shows warning signs, development funding doesn't freeze. Economic motive. Procedural motive. Not random. Not malicious. Weaponized incentives. You didn't plant them, I said. But you helped the people who needed them there. She didn't deny it. The house exhaled, a sigh settling. Safe, for a moment. The kind of safety that asks, do I hold? Or do I shift? Kim touched the soil near the south run. Ground's listening. Something moved down here recently. We all looked at the sedan. The driver hadn't blinked. His eyes tracked Pike's hands, not the wall. Calculating load. Not human weight. Structural. Celeste sucked in a thin breath. He shouldn't be this close. You know him? I asked. No, she said too fast. Then slower. I know the company behind him. What company? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The wall coughed, short, sharp. Danger. Dust sifted from the beam above the crawlspace hatch. The house creaked, a tight, defiant protest. Pike straightened. Something down there shifted again. We can't leave those masses in place. And we're not crawling under with them still active, Kim said. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. Remove the drivers, remove the story. Adrian swore under his breath. They're rewriting your house like it's a script. Not rewriting, I said. Editing. Pike crouched at the hatch again. We pull the devices with tools only. No hands near the footing. We document everything. Kim raised her camera. Chain of custody started. Celeste stepped closer, voice thin. I need to make calls. No, I said. She froze. You stay until this is done. You're the only one the insurer will listen to. She didn't like it. She also didn't argue. Pike reached under the crawl space with a hooked stabilizer rod. The camera showed the second device, perched on the beam like a parasite. He hooked it, lifted, and it fell into a dustpan with a soft metallic clink, a sound too small for something that dangerous. Kim examined it. This one's tuned slightly different. A different pulse frequency. Someone was calibrating these. Tap. Not rhythm, calibration. We all turned toward the sedan. The driver had one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his thigh like he'd been carved there. He didn't look at Celeste. He didn't look at Adrian. He looked at the porch, at the two devices sitting side by side like evidence ready to testify. He lifted his head by 1 inch. Dead, unwavering eye contact. The porch floor shifted under my feet. Barely, but enough to remind me the house wasn't neutral in this. Kim grabbed my sleeve. Back inside. Now. As we stepped through the doorway, the house gave a long, low creak, an answering sound, the kind of structure makes when it's bracing for a decision. The sedan engine cut. Silence rolled in. Not empty. Not passive. Intent. Heavy enough to bend the air. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. You've seen the tools. Next comes the hand that placed them. And the house, my house, went utterly still, listening. The driver's 2 fingers hovered in the air, like he was marking a beat in a sequence only he could hear. Frost dust fell off the porch rail in a soft sheet. Somewhere in the wall a nail pinged, bright and small as a tuning fork. He lowered his hand and spoke for the first time loud enough that even the house seemed to hear it. Morning frost gives the cleanest read. Cold engineering. No anger. Just procedure. Pike didn't look up from the accelerometer. He's right, he said tightly. Ice stiffens the surface, isolates variables, and makes us predictable, Kim said. Everyone inside. We work from cover. We stepped back over the threshold. As the door swung in, the driver tapped the wheel twice with a ring, 2 clean, metallic ticks. Not rhythm. Calibration. The accelerometer blinked in answer, a shy green stutter before it steadied. Stop responding to him, Kim muttered to the machine, as if scolding a dog that wanted to please. Adrian caught my sleeve. We can call someone, state, federal. This isn't just a retaining wall. They'll want proof, not panic, I said. We have both. Let's make the proof heavy. Pike slid the 2 destabilizers into separate evidence bags. Pulse masses, both of them, he said for the camera. Tuned differently. Designed to teach the beam of false gravity. He glanced at me. They're not cheap. Then someone with money expects a return, I said. Celeste stood with her back to the kitchen window, phone inert in her hand, knuckles white. When she spoke, the words came out measured and thin. A collapse that shows warning signs moves to a different liability class. Funding doesn't freeze if failure is anticipated. Say it plainer, Kim said. It keeps the money moving, Celeste whispered. The last word broke. She pressed her lips hard enough that the color vanished. Adrian turned to her. You knew the incentives. She didn't deny it. A pen in her other hand snapped without her noticing, the sound small and shocking. She looked down at the 2 broken halves as if they'd done it by themselves. The house gave a slow knock, a shift. Safe, for now. Pike breathed again. She's listening. Not screaming. Hold her attention, Kim said. We go into the crawl space with the scope only. No bodies. No stupid. I lowered the hatch. The camera light swam through dust. The beam where the second device had been showed a scar like a bruise. Soil at the south run looked combed, and not by animals. The screen glitched once, then returned. Shadow, pipes, an old nail head shining like an eye. Stop, Pike said. Back 1 inch. He leaned closer. There. A 3rd clip point. No device now, just the indent. They tested positions before they committed. I pictured the black notebook from the video. Architectural block letters, small and tight, as if written by someone who drafts more than he speaks. Under the drawing of my wall, projected failure vector, 13 degrees inward. Acceptable collateral. The words moved through me like cold. Outside, the sedan idled. Inside, the mug on the counter rattled in sympathy. The driver tapped the wheel again with the ring, 2 ticks. The accelerometer flashed green, then a brief yellow. Thinking. Pike whispered, he's mapping response time. Freeze, pulse, read. Freeze, pulse, read. Kim's radio crackled. Hale's voice rolled in, steady as the river. 2 blocks out. Got eyes on a Tilson fleet tag and an unmarked following it. Bring your boots, she said. Bring your ugly mood. The porch beam vibrated. A dust filigree shook down from the joist like the air had weight. The wall sent a tight cough. Danger, followed by a sigh, settling. The way a body learns to breathe in pain. He wants it engineered, I said. Not accidental. He wants a controlled disaster, Pike said, keeping his voice level. We interrupt the sequence. Elias, keep the camera steady. Kim, log pulses. Adrian, door. If the footing hiccups, we don't want anyone in a doorway. Adrian moved without argument, bracing a shoulder near the frame, but not against it. He'd stopped touching his watch. His hands were open, ready to catch something he couldn't see. Celeste stared at the devices bagged on the table like they were dogs waiting to be named. I can call the insurer, she said. Force them to pull the subcontract. Do it after, Kim said. Right now he's writing the physics, not the paperwork. The driver stepped out of the sedan. Office shoes on frost. River mud cracked at the cuffs like old varnish. He didn't blink. He adjusted his cuff once, precise, as if aligning himself to a blueprint only he could see. He raised 2 fingers, beat 1. The accelerometer flicked. He lowered them, tapped the ring twice on the wheel, raised 1 finger, beat 2. Baseline, dynamic. Pike murmured, writing air with his index finger. He's getting ready to trigger a sympathetic. Can he do it from there? Adrian asked. If he's already taught the wall the rhythm, Pike said. He only has to ask. I set Mara's level on the mantle out of reflex. The bubbles settled dead center in a heartbeat. The house creaked once, not complaint, attention. Hale's SUV eased to the curb behind the sedan. He got out slowly, coat open, hands visible. The driver didn't turn. He tapped the ring once more against the wheel, bright, arrogant. Hale said nothing. He just set his boots square, the way men do when they mean to be in the way. Kim raised her camera toward the window. On my mark, she said. If he cues, we counter. How? Adrian asked. Noise, Pike said. Real noise. Not loud, wrong. We give the wall a different lesson before he gives it his. I grabbed the carpenter's pencil, the level, the tape measure. Tools like memory. What's wrong enough? Pike pointed at the mantle. You tapping the level where the beam is stoutest. 3 taps. Off beat. Like a metronome with a limp, Kim said. The driver raised 2 fingers again. He didn't look at Hale. He didn't look at Celeste. He stared at the line between our porch posts, calculating load. 2 fingers held for a beat, then lowered halfway. Now, Pike said. I tapped the level 3 times, deliberately uneven, long, short, long. The sound went into the wood like a secret. The accelerometer hesitated. The driver's fingers paused. The wall gave a knock, confused, a shift that didn't match the lesson. The mug rattled once then settled. Again, Pike said. Different pattern. I tapped short, short, long. Kim whispered numbers to herself. The accelerometer blinked green, stayed there, flirted with yellow, settled back. Outside, the driver finally blinked. A small, human movement, but it felt like a break in the spell. He raised 1 finger, as if to prove the sequence still belonged to him. I tapped long, long, then dragged the tape measure off the mantle so it sang against the wood, a low metallic whine. The accelerometer blinked yellow, thinking, then stubbornly green. The wall gave a sigh, settling. Kim let out air she'd been hoarding. We're teaching it back. Pike nodded once. Keep it weird. Hale took 2 slow steps toward the sedan. The driver's jaw shifted, chewing on a thought. Then he did something that surprised me. He smiled. Not warmth. Recognition. He'd met resistance before. He liked it. My phone buzzed. Unknown again. You're late because you're sentimental. Another buzz. Originals don't save you if the ground prefers revision. I typed without thinking. Go first. Put your name on the cut. No reply. He simply raised 2 fingers again. Beat set, shoulders aligned. Celeste finally found her voice. No, she whispered. To no one, to everyone. She looked smaller without her certainty, like a blueprint scaled down. No, not like this. I tapped the level, short, long, then slapped the end of the tape against the mantle so it snapped like a flag. The sound shivered the stair trim. A picture frame tapped the wall. The accelerometer stayed green and stubborn. The footing answered with a low, reluctant knock, shift without slide. The driver's 2 fingers hovered, then dropped. He tapped his ring once on the wheel, twice on the doorframe, and turned his head, finally, to look at Hale. Regulations change tomorrow, he said calmly, almost conversational, as if offering context, not threat. Then he let the line curdle. Today is cleaner. Cold intent. Corporate deadline. A calendar weaponized. Hale didn't blink. Try me tomorrow. The driver smiled again, smaller, meaner, and eased back into the car. The engine stayed off. He wasn't leaving. He was saving fuel. Kim checked the numbers. Holding. Don't celebrate. Pike wiped dust from the second bag. Chain of custody's clean. We're logging these with the county and the insurer. If someone wants to anticipate failure, they'll do it on paper, not under this floor. Adrian leaned into the doorframe without touching it. He'll try again. Yes, I said. But now the wall remembers a different song. The house seemed to agree. A faint, even creak went through the joists like a body settling into a brace it chose. Another text pinged. Sentiment buys you hours. And then, as if to underline the sentence, the accelerometer flickered yellow just once and steadied. The frost on the railing loosened in a single, whispering fall. A nail somewhere inside the wall pinged again, smaller this time. Hours, Kim said, rolling her shoulders back. We'll use them. Celeste looked at the broken pen in her palm, then at the devices on the table. I'll call the insurer, she said, steadier. Not because it saves you, because it incriminates them. She met my eyes like an apology she wouldn't speak. I thought I was writing the plan. I wasn't. Then stop being the page, I said. She nodded once. Not a promise. A decision. Hale stepped closer to the sedan, boots square, hands easy. The driver watched him the way a man watches a level rise to true. 2 fingers lifted, not a warning. A cue. The beginning of a countdown the ground seemed to recognize. Inside, the house held its breath. The wall gave one small knock, then a long, patient sigh. Keep it weird, Pike said softly. We did. The frost didn't melt. It hardened, turning the yard into a sheet of glass that made every vibration feel intentional. By late morning, the house wasn't quiet. It was listening. Pike watched the accelerometer glow on the counter. Kim wired the porch camera to a backup battery. Hale stared down the street like he could smell intent. And the sedan stayed exactly where it had been all night. Half a house down, engine cold, driver motionless behind the glass. He tapped his ring on the steering wheel once every few minutes. Not impatience. Calibration. Kim's voice dropped. Don't you see it? He's not signaling us. She swallowed. He's signaling the ground. A chill crawled up my spine in a straight line. Adrian paced the living room. What's he waiting for? Night. No, Pike said. He's waiting for the footing to reach the temperature he likes. Kim checked the tablet. Predictable inputs. Clean data. I hate him. Celeste slipped inside without knocking. The tension in her shoulders had changed. Now it bent toward us, not against. I called the insurer, she said, voice low. They've seen this pattern before. That knocked the air out of me harder than any cough in the wall. Kim's radio crackled. She stiffened. South Run just flinched. Not a cough, a nervous twitch. We stepped onto the porch. The cold felt heavier here, as if the air itself was bracing. The sedan door opened. He stepped out. Same office shoes. Same river mud cracked at the cuffs like dried blood. But today, a new detail. He ran 2 fingers along the edge of the doorframe, feeling the vibration in the metal, like a man testing a pulse. He raised 2 fingers, clean, deliberate, then lowered them halfway. A cue. The accelerometer blinked yellow. Here we go, Pike whispered. He's syncing a harmonic. I grabbed Mara's level and tapped it once, long, offbeat. The wall answered with a knock. Confused. Interrupted. The bad pulse had bumped the bad rhythm. Kim exhaled shakily. Good. Again. The driver blinked. Just once. Irritation slipping through his mask. Celeste suddenly stepped between me and the sedan. Not fully blocking me. Just aligning herself. You'll bury more than a wall, she said quietly. Her voice shook, but she stayed planted. The driver didn't acknowledge her. He only tapped his ring on the roof. Once, twice, sweet, metallic ticks. The accelerometer spiked red. Pike's voice sharpened. He's pushing a node. Inside now. We backed through the door as frost dust shivered off the porch rail. A mug on the counter rattled. A nail in the joist gave a bright, solitary ping. Then, green again. Silence. Not peace, intent. My phone buzzed. Your mercy bought you hours. Nothing more. Another ping. Clean data requires cold ground. Hale lifted the curtain just enough to see. He's not hitting the house again. Too many eyes. So where? Adrian asked. I already knew. Down by the river. The footing ran close to the embankment, soil brittle in frost, sound swallowed by water, no cameras, no neighbors, no warning. If he hits the right beam, I said, the wall won't just crack. Pike finished it. It will obey, fold clean into the river. And the current will swallow the evidence, Kim whispered. Celeste closed her eyes. That's why the frost mattered. I grabbed my coat. Then we moved before he does. Outside, the sedan door clicked shut. Soft. Surgical. The driver raised 2 fingers again. Not a threat. A countdown. And the ground, God help us, seemed to recognize it. We reached the river path before he did. Frost cracked in long, brittle seams, each one sharp enough to feel through our boots. The river moved slow and heavy beside us. Not flowing. Waiting. Pike knelt at the footing line with his scope. Kim placed sensors along the beam in tight, surgical intervals. Hale stood guard at the bend, hands in his coat pockets, chin down like a man daring trouble to approach. The footing rumbled once, subtle, inward. Pike muttered, if it goes here, the entire retaining run listens. One break, and the town loses 20 feet of riverbank. My stomach dropped. Not a wall failing. A riverbank walking. Adrian exhaled sharply. He can do all that here? Kim didn't look up. Here is perfect. Frost makes the soil obedient. The accelerometer chirped softly, a lonely digital heartbeat. Then footsteps. Soft. Measured. As if calibrated to the cold. The driver stepped into view. He moved like he already knew which square of ground belonged to him. His breath showed no vapor. His eyes tracked the tiny green pulse on Kim's tablet in perfect sync, eyelids flickering at the same rhythm. He wasn't watching us. He was watching resonance. He stopped 10 feet away. 2 fingers lifted. The accelerometer's glow paused, held, like a lung halfway through an inhale. The soil just tightened. Pike whispered, a muscle clenching around bone. Kim flinched. He's teaching it the harmonic again. The driver spoke quietly, as if correcting an equation. Structures fail cleanest at the waterline. I stepped forward. You walk away now, and the wall stands. He watched the beam, not me. You mistake mercy for mathematics. 2 fingers lowered halfway. The footing flexed, a single vertebrae shifting its weight. Kim's sensors spiked yellow. He's initiating resonance. Pike grabbed my arm. Counter. OFF the beat. Now. I swung Mara's level against the beam. Wrong rhythm. Ugly. Human. Long short long long. The footing hesitated. Kim's screen flickered yellow-green yellow. The driver blinked once, eyes sinking to the pulse again like he was recalculating. Hale stepped in front of me, not blocking, simply existing like an obstruction the earth itself respected. You know what I hate? Hale said, voice flat. When a man thinks the ground owes him obedience. The driver's jaw clicked, a tiny, irritated tick in the silence. He placed 2 fingers on the rail. His cuff aligned itself perfectly to the beat. He pulsed. The river answered, a deep, dragging groan. Kim shouted, he's hitting the node, hard. I slammed the level again, dragging the tape so it screeched like metal crying out of tune. Wrong rhythm. On purpose. Kim's sensors surged red, orange, yellow, green. The footing released a long, pained sigh. The driver froze. His hand hovered 1 millimeter above the rail. Feeling the tremor, he failed to summon. Celeste stepped forward, voice trembling. You won't get your failure. He finally looked at her. Not angry, disappointed. You switched sides. I stopped pretending I had won. A long moment passed. He studied her the way he studied the wall, evaluating structural integrity, not humanity. Then he stepped back from the rail. 2 taps of his ring on the metal post. Delicate, precise. The same cadence he tried to teach the wall. A promise, not a farewell. He turned and walked toward the sedan. Frost didn't crunch under his steps. It parted. Kim lowered her tablet, breath shaking. He's retreating. Pike brushed mud off the beam like he was checking the pulse of something alive. She wants to stand, he said softly. She doesn't want his lessons. Adrian swallowed hard. Is it over? No, I said. But the rhythm isn't his anymore. We climbed back toward the house. The river murmured behind us. Not threat, not relief. Witness. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Your mercy stalled collapse. It won't stall design. Another message arrived before I could breathe. Copies obey. Originals remember. A final tremor shivered through the rail, not fear. Attention. Pike glanced back at the footing. She's listening. I tightened my grip on the level. Good, I said. Then we teach her a new rhythm.